just been metal detecting today, about a mile outside of Trellech in a pretty nondescript field. Anyway, let's have a little see what the finds of today are. Okay. First up, in the middle of a field, a tiny little spoon. It's almost... no, it could be a child's spoon or a very small dessert spoon. Sadly, it's missing its end. Can't quite make out what metal it is. Not quite sure. Anyway, it just makes you think maybe that was a farmer having his lunch in the middle of a field, had a little fork with his lunch and dropped it in the field. Or possibly was it a child's? We'll never know. Ooh, don't know if you can see that. Secondly, it's a little pin badge. I need to give it a really good clean. There is some writing on it, but I can't identify what it is. So that's the unknown. A Georgian coin from the 1700s. Now, how do I know it's a Georgian coin? Because there's hardly anything on it, and that actually is the giveaway. Because during the Georgian times, this is the start of the Industrial Revolution, so copper becomes immensely important and also valuable to basically make all the copper piping in steam systems. The irony is that copper coins at the time were worth more as copper than they were as coins, so it was very, very common to take a copper coin, melt it down, debase it with another metal, keep 50% or whatever of the copper that you've extracted, and then make a new coin with a very low percentage of copper. So a lot of, you can tell this is a forged coin basically, because so little copper in it, it's eroded. You can probably just make out the head of King George, but that's about it. But yeah, so when you find coins like this that are pretty much just circular discs, guaranteed they're Georgian, and guaranteed it's a counterfeit. Like I said, they were taking the copper and using it for other things, which is why you should never ever have currency which is worth more as its base metal than its monetary value. So a good example of that. Another find from the 1700s, and this is what's called a tombac button. Material itself is tombac, which is it's an alloy of sort of pewter and I think zinc in there. Sometimes you find them plain. This one's got a nice little decoration on it. Very low value button. Typically, when you find these in a field, this would have been on a farmer's jacket, jerkin, whatever, or possibly on their breeches. And again, this is 1700, so it ties in with the 1700 King George coin. And then lastly, now this is not an uncommon find, but what it is, it's a thumb thimble. Now, it's obviously been crushed over the years, but you can see it would fit on my thumb if it was straightened out. And you might ask yourself, why is there a thumb thimble in the middle of a field? Quite simply, this probably dates at the latest Victorian, I suppose, maybe early sort of 1910, maybe 1920. Could be older than that. But anyway, the reason these are quite common finds in fields is back in the day, corn, etc., was loaded into Hessian sacks if they'd been threshed in the field, or other things will be put into Hessian sacks, and to seal them you literally stitched them up with a very big heavy duty needle and thread. So it was very common for farm labourers to have thimbles with them, as you would in any form of sewing or knitting, so you don't basically prick your thumb. So that's why a thimble is found in the middle of a field in, say, the middle of nowhere, no buildings around it, etc. So that's the nature of the thimble. So yeah, a few interesting finds for the day. Nothing of historical value, but just sentimental, and I'll leave those with the landowner.